morning and welcome to BATV News. I'm Kalila Reynolds. Scientist Dr. Henry Lowe says he's looking to sell his newly approved cancer treatment drug for as much as $250 million. But he says he will wait until the drug is close to being put on the market. Dr. Lowe is a guest on this week's episode of BATV's Business Current Affairs show On Point, which airs right after this newscast. Anthony Morgan reports.
Last month, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, granted orphan drug status to a drug developed from cannabis by Dr. Lowe and his team of researchers. An orphan drug is one developed to treat diseases not being pursued by large pharmaceutical companies who don't believe there's enough profit in it. Dr. Lowe's drug Crestorol was developed to treat acute myeloid leukemia, a type of cancer that affects the blood cells. Crestorol is expected to bring in millions of dollars in annual sales, but the scientist says he plans to sell it when it's close to market.
We're not going to take this orphan drug to market because it's too expensive and we don't have the expertise, and it's our first big move. We want to sell it somewhere along the chain when it's close to market within the next 1 to 2 years. We're not talking about 3. The FDA has given us 3 years to get it out there with their support, but we are expecting to finish off and move to other things in 2 years.
Dr. Lowe says with that aim to have it ready for market well within the FDA's 3-year timeline, he's expecting to sell the drug for anywhere between $15 and $250 million US.
If we can move there in 2 years' time, what we will be able to do is to sell the drug anywhere between 15 million and 250 million.
That's a large range.
In 2 years, yes, because it depends on where you reach.
Yeah.
Because you see, if you take it right up to market, it's far more valuable.
Right.
And then you license the drug or sell it. If your license is better because you get a percentage of the sale.
The scientist says the drug's approval has placed the country in a good light in the world of cannabis research. And he says his team is working on other potential orphan drugs to treat other deadly cancers.
Right now we have potential orphan drugs, and I'm calling them potential because we haven't taken them to that level as yet. Things like pancreatic cancer, which is a killer. Glioblastoma, brain cancer. These we are now working on, and we are positive that we are going to get there. So the potential that we have as a little country, because right now I tell you, Jamaica is now on the map for this.
For BATV News, I'm Anthony Morgan.
One transport group is urging the government not to approve the North-South Highway's request to raise toll rates. The Ministry of Transport published the requested rates in today's major newspapers. The highway operators are seeking as much as a 31% increase on some sections. The Transport Operators Development Sustainable Service, TODS, says any attempt by the government to accept a request for a toll increase would be seen as the most insane action by the government. TODS says they cannot afford and will not accept any further adjustment in toll fees at this time. They say they think the time has come for the Andrew Holness administration to commit to upgrading all alternative roads to the highway. TODS says it stands ready to support any boycott of the toll road if the government grants the increase. If approved, the new rates would become effective September 9. A statement from Transport Minister Mike Henry yesterday says he's obliged to consider the request under the concession agreement, but is seeking dialogue with the toll operators. The world of money and finance is transforming before our eyes. Digitalized instruments and systems are making it easier to conduct transactions in business. One financial technology solution making waves globally is cryptocurrencies, like the popular Bitcoin. Although many of the digital payment systems are accepted in several countries, Bank of Jamaica Governor Brian Winter says the central bank needs to do more research before cryptocurrencies can be regulated. Andrew Laidley reports.
Cryptocurrencies are digital currencies in which encryption techniques are used to regulate units of currency and verify the transfer of funds. They usually operate independently of a central bank. BOJ Governor Brian Winter says cryptocurrencies are crucial in helping to build out the island's financial inclusion initiatives. But how much do we really know about them? According to Governor Winter, that's what's derailing the central bank from regulating and using it.
We think this is a very the broader space of digital money and so forth to be very full of potential, but they're also fraught with, as any financial innovation is, fraught with the risk, the potential for considerable danger if not managed properly.
But they're not counting it out. The BOJ governor says the bank is keeping a close eye on the digital financial system.
We are very much aware of the developments that have been going on, and we keep a very close eye on it. We think that the expansion of technologies into the financial space, often referred to as fintech, is something that is going to be an enabler, an opportunity to enable more efficient financial services and also more inclusive financial services.
He says an assessment would need to be done to determine whether cryptocurrencies can be regulated from a central bank perspective and the likelihood of banks using the system within a Jamaican context.
It's particularly challenging because one has to, in a sense, one has to work hard to have as deep an understanding as possible about these phenomena, before you can come with a reasonable regulatory sort of response, and or not just regulatory, but in terms of using it as well. Since remember, Bank of Jamaica is not just a regulator; we're also a major economic participant.
For BATV News, I'm Andrew Laidley.
And when we come back, we'll tell you how today's emergency meeting at the Ministry of Labor went. Welcome back. The Bustamante Industrial Trade Union, BITU, has withdrawn its strike notice served on the Urban Development Corporation, UDC. The move comes after both parties met in an emergency meeting at the Ministry of Labor this morning. The BITU had issued a 72-hour strike notice on the UDC on Tuesday. The ultimatum resulted from a failure to complete wage and fringe benefits negotiations for a number of claims on behalf of unionized workers at several UDC entities in St. Anne. Labor Minister Shahini Robinson invited the parties to a meeting today in an effort to resolve the issues and prevent the strike. The BITU had written to both the minister and UDC General Manager Dr. Damian Graham, notifying them of their decision to issue the ultimatum. The union says the disputed issues are leftovers from the 2015-17 Heads of Agreement between the public sector trade unions and the government. The parties will meet again on August 25 to continue discussions. Tourism Minister Ed Bartlett says emerging markets are contributing to the record-breaking number of new visitors coming to the country. The minister was speaking in an interview with Travel News in London after the recent World Championships. Nordia Francis Williams reports.
Minister Bartlett says along with new attractions and investments to drive tourists to Jamaica's shores, new markets are also opening up.
And we've had nearly 3,000 new rooms in the last year and a half, and we're on track for another 1.5 thousand rooms for this year, and we are hoping to have by 2021 another 10,000 rooms. So new products. We have also had a number of new attractions and the new investments have come. New markets, we're looking very strong in Asia. We're going also to look at India as a new emerging market.
The minister adds that while Southeast Asia and Africa are also becoming big contributors for visitors, there is the sustained support from closer markets like the US and Canada.
Africa is also growing, and of course Southeast Asia is the strongest segment of the outbound market of the world today. The United States and Canada will continue to be our breadbasket areas because we still have over 60% of our visitors coming from those two areas, and it will continue to grow.
In the meantime, Minister Bartlett says the UK market is also one to watch.
Europe has grown, and we are very excited about the growth in Europe, and particularly in the UK. UK has grown by 5.5% for the year so far, and what element has really excited us most is the romance and wedding market. In fact, that has grown by 40% for the year so far. So we see the right trajectory in terms of not only the passion points that we've been able to develop that have excited people to travel, but the infrastructure to enable safety and security.
For BATV News, I'm Norda Francis Williams.
Renewable energy company Wigton Wind Farm Limited launched its first endorsed book yesterday. It's entitled Understanding Wind Energy: Youth Repowering the Future. It was launched at the PCJ Auditorium, marking another milestone for the company. The book's author, energy engineer Oswald King, says he wrote the book to fill a gap in the information available to students about wind energy and wind farms. King has been employed at Wigton for the past 9 years. He adds that his research revealed that there are books readily available about renewable energy, but not tailored towards an in-depth explanation about wind energy and its electricity generating potential. He says his publication is the first of its kind written in Jamaica that focuses solely on wind energy and wind farms. The book has been approved by the Ministry of Education and will be used as teaching material to educate secondary school students in grades 7 to 9. And when we come back, find out how the Trinidad government is responding to Britain's advisory, warning nationals to be on high alert for terrorism in the Twin Island Republic. Regional and international news after the break. Welcome back. It's time now for regional and international news. Officials in Trinidad and Tobago say the British government's recent advisory warning nationals to be on high alert for terrorist attacks in the Twin Island Republic is unmerited. The advisory was issued by the Foreign and Commonwealth Office last Friday. It warns of a general threat from terrorism in Trinidad and Tobago and says attacks could be indiscriminate, including in places visited by foreigners. It further warns that while there have been no recent attacks in Port of Spain, more than 100 Trinidad and Tobago nationals have traveled to Syria and Iraq to fight along Islamic State and are likely to pose a security threat when they return. The advisory drew an immediate response from the Keith Rowley administration, which held talks with the British High Commission. In a statement after the meeting, Trinidad officials insisted there was no intelligence which called for the language in the advisory. However, the British officials pointed out that the language on terrorism was included in May 2017 and there was no recent update. Meanwhile, the Rowley government says it strengthened its efforts to fight terrorism at home and abroad. 4 days after a foreign plane landed on an illegal airstrip in Guyana, authorities are still trying to get to the bottom of its mysterious appearance. Civil aviation authorities have confirmed that the Beechcraft King Air plane is registered in Brazil and is operated by a company said to be involved in the gold industry. Demerara Waves Online is reporting that the plane is registered in the name of Brazilian bank Bradesco. However, a spokesman for the bank says the aircraft doesn't belong to Bradesco, but is registered in their name should the debtor fail to repay their loan. Guyanese police spotted the aircraft on Sunday at an illegal airstrip at Santa Fe, North Rupununi. 3 men reportedly exited the plane on landing and escaped. Police officials say they found several pieces of communication equipment, cell phones, flashlights, dried rations, medical supplies, and an identification card during a search of the plane. State Minister Joseph Harmon says government will take action to increase security of Guyana's airspace in light of the development. U.S. Vice President Mike Pence is in Chile as part of his tour of Latin America to promote harsher regional measures against Venezuela. Now, Venezuela has seen near daily demonstrations with pro- and anti-government protesters taking to the streets since the end of March. The U.S. has described Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's government as a dictatorship. Al Jazeera's Latin America editor Lucian Newman reports from Santiago, Chile.
The U.S. Vice President walked into the same presidential palace from where a Chilean socialist president was ousted in 1973 in a U.S.-backed military coup. And with Donald Trump's threat of possible military intervention in Venezuela now on everyone's mind, Chile's president, also a socialist, minced no words.
I want to be very clear. Chile will do everything it can to support all peaceful means for the restoration of democracy in Venezuela. But Chile will not support a coup d'etat nor military interventions. We will only support sanctions adopted by the UN Security Council.
Vice President Mike Pence's message was that Washington expected Latin American democracies to put more pressure on Venezuela's government to restore democracy.
The United States will not stand by as Venezuela crumbles.
But faced with a regional outcry, he tried to tone down talk of military intervention.
The United States has many options for Venezuela. But the President also remains confident that working with all our allies across Latin America, we can achieve a peaceable solution to the crisis facing the Venezuelan people. Madam President, as I assured you today in our meeting, I assure you now, what we do for Venezuela, we will do together.
The U.S. Vice President says that he will be reporting back to President Trump that after his meetings here, he's now more confident that additional economic and diplomatic measures could bring about a breakthrough in Venezuela. But pressed for details, we were told they could not be made public for now.
Cooperation between Chile.
Whatever they are, should they not work, Pence was clear Washington would keep all its options open. This before heading to Panama, which coincidentally was the last country where the U.S. staged a military intervention in Latin America. Lucia Newman, Al Jazeera, Santiago.
About 3/4 of French restaurants now sell hamburgers. That's according to a study last year, which also shows some 80% saying it's become their top-selling meal. It's a sign of changing tastes in the country, which is now one of the biggest consumers of American-style fast food in Europe. Al Jazeera's Natasha Butler reports from Paris.
The French are famous for their love of fine food. Gourmet products are a source of national pride, and shopping for the best wine or sumptuous cheese is a way of life. But less known is their voracious appetite for an American staple, the burger, along with a portion of French fries, as the Americans call them. The French are one of the biggest consumers of burgers in Europe, eating an average of 18 per person each year.
There is just something which appeals to us about eating American food. Maybe it's because in Paris it's mostly bakeries with sandwiches everywhere, and we like a change sometimes.
I eat burgers from time to time for something different. It's nice having choice.
20 years ago, burgers was something of a novelty in France, but now 8 out of 10 restaurants have a burger on the menu. And analysts say it's a sign that tastes are changing. Merci.
French people didn't used to eat out much. They ate at home. But French society and taste are changing. Fast food's now more popular. Today, there's more choice. There is a huge range of burgers. They are better presented, marketed, and it's why people have become so passionate about them.
Big brand burgers are the top sellers, but French chefs are now taking matters into their own hands and fighting back with a Gallic twist on the fast food favourite. Big Fernand uses only French meat, bread and cheese. Its founder says that the French have a natural affinity for burgers because they contain the nation's most cherished ingredients.
And we've got the best cheese, we've got the best bakery here in the world, and we've got the best meat. That's why they appreciate the burger. It's a worldwide fashion, and now it's a French product. That's why the name here is not hamburger, but hamburger, the French name.
It's a paradox that in a country of food snobs and gastronomic greats, it's the humble burger that is king. But with more burger eateries opening regularly in France, it seems the craze is unlikely to end anytime soon. Natasha Butler, Al Jazeera, Paris.
Stay with us. Talking Stocks comes up next. Welcome back. It's time now for Talking Stocks. Let's take a look at how trading ended today on the stock exchange. And that's the news for this evening. But before we go, a recap of our top story. Scientist Dr. Henry Lowe says he's looking to sell his newly approved cancer treatment drug for as much as $250 million US. But he says he'll wait until the drug is close to being put on the market. I'm Kalila Reynolds. Pleasant viewing.